Hello, I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking for FinextraTV at EBAday 2026 in Copenhagen, and I'm joined by Patricia Sullivan, Global Head Institutional Cash Management at Deutsche Bank, and we're talking about payment rails looking ahead to 2030. Patricia, welcome to our studio.
Thank you, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be here. My first time at EBAday and my first time in Copenhagen.
Well, that is both very good to hear, and I think we're having our interview at the right time because there's a huge buzz outside our studio.
Yes, I'm very excited about the entire energy in this venue.
Oh, that is so good to hear. And of course, when we spoke earlier, we spoke payment rails looking ahead to 2030. But of course, that choice of traditional and emerging rails is ever growing, and there's still so much more to come. But what sort of pressure is this putting on banks in terms of their own ability to support consumer choice?
I think I'd first like to take a step back and think about what actually consumers are demanding and make sure we can, find the signal in the noise. So our clients are most definitely looking for certainty, convenience, liquidity optimization, and trust. And we are then looking at different types of rails, different types of infrastructure support to support what our clients are really seeking. And right now, we are actively building blockchain rails that will definitely help clients meet one of their objectives, which is liquidity optimization and greater convenience for things like 24/7 settlement.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talk about the approach and what consumers need, and all these have to be factored in. But how do you ultimately decide which rails are worth exploring and investing?
So that's a great question, and one that's extremely topical for Deutsche Bank right now. We are really in the process of finalizing what exactly our digital asset strategy is. And to arrive at where we need to prioritize our resources, our budgets, we've spent a lot of time talking to our clients, looking at not only the types of products and services that we're offering to our clients, but two, where do we see the greatest potential for use cases that will provide those four objectives that I mentioned our clients are seeking. Convenience, certainty, liquidity optimization, and trust. And then finally, where do we see the greatest potential to scale? So I'll give you an example. Right now, we're part of Project Pharaoh. It is a consortium of banks building a stable coin in USD. And one of the points that Deutsche Bank was really looking at is, does that project really have the ability to scale quickly? Versus some of the projects that are looking at building a euro stablecoin. Do we want to be part of both at this moment? How do we decide? And the reality is, over 99% of stablecoin right now is in US dollar. So the ability to scale quickly led us to prioritize where we want to first put our resourcing, which will then very quickly scale out to euro. So those are the types of decisions we're looking at and some of the factors that we're assessing in order to decide where we want to put our time.
And that word, decision making and decide, that's going to lead me to my next question, because multi-rail payments, they enable that need for more speed and more automated intelligence layers within orchestration. But let's get to the decision making. How much situational and rule-based decisioning enables you to make that right rail selection?
So I've now spent 8 hours here at EBAday, and definitely this is the topic of the day. And everything is about that smart, intelligent orchestration layer. I like to think about the future 2030 as a bank like Deutsche Bank being that trusted air traffic controller to make those different routing decisions. Which runway, which time of day, how do we build the weather conditions into our air traffic control decisions? And when I analogize that to the payments landscape, some of the decision points we're looking at include pricing, the geography of the corridor, the fraud risk in certain corridors, the need for speed. So for example, if we're dealing with a slow value retail payment, there's a greater need for speed than a high value institutional payment. So we look at these different points in order to help us assess where we as air traffic controller want to route that type of payment. Should it go on to the blockchain rails, where we're going to have the ability, especially with things like tokenized deposits, to do large value settlement with a lot of certainty and a lot of transparency for our clients? Or are we looking at a low value payment where we might want to be using a stable coin that can do it very cost effectively for our clients, so they're not paying fees out of a low value payment, and also with quite a lot of speed. So I want to be that air traffic controller where clients put their trust, but it's not something that clients always think about. But when we think about 2030, that's going to be where the value is, in being above the ecosystem and directing the traffic onto different types of rails, thinking about all those different environmental factors to help make the best decision.
You answered my next question there. As we come to a close, I was about to ask you why 2030, but you spoke about that overview by 2030, that umbrella view.
Yeah, we like to talk about 2030 because it gives us some time to make sure we do safely build the new rails of the future and continue to maintain that trusted relationship with our partners and clients, many of whom we've had relationships with for over 3 decades. And we know that they don't want quick changes made overnight without the right guardrails in place.
Thank you. And on that note, may I say thank you so much for joining us here at EBAday and our TV studio. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. It was my pleasure to be here.